So we now need to figure out how nodes actually make a signal. All right? So let's review. Here's my intrinsic conduction system, the wiring of my heart, the computers. Okay? We have two words here you have to keep in your head. First one is this one, contractile cell. What does a contractile cell do? Contracts. What do we call contractile cells? In 231. A muscle cell. Very good. What muscle cells are we talking about if we're talking about our heart? Cardiac muscles. So the contractile cells are the physical ones that are going to get smaller. So those are the muscle cells. In this animation, it's the gray stuff. They're the ones that are going to get bigger and smaller. Right? That's different from this word. Autorhythmic cells are not muscle cells. What does autorhythmic mean? The nerves, they self-time, right? So the autorhythmic cells are the yellow ones. They're the neurons, the nodes, the computers in there. So my heart has wiring, autorhythmic cells, and muscles, contractile cells. And they have to work together. So the autorhythmic cells are going to tell my contractile cells when to beat, when to squeeze. Does that make sense? So you have a leader and a follower, basically. So if we see that up close and personal, that's this. So here's my autorhythmic cell, my node, my Purkinje fiber, my neuron. And here are my cardiac muscles, intercalated discs, right, striated, blah, blah, blah. All right? So if we watch them in action, that's what we see. So the autorhythmic cell goes first, it sets the order, and the contractile cells obey and contract. Right? So P, QRS, and T are here, systole, diastole are here. Does that make sense? So when you do an EKG, you're measuring the autorhythmic cells, what the neurons are doing, and hopefully the heart is following along. Right? So you notice how the contractile cells sort of squeeze like an inchworm, right? They go in order. Why would you want them to squeeze like in a sequence if you were a heart? So blood comes, I want to squeeze the blood from here and push it out. So the heart's going to beat sort of as a direction. So my autorhythmic cell says go, and the signal spreads down my heart in a particular direction. Right? So now we're going to see how that happens. So welcome back to Biology 112 and 231. Someone tell me what this is?
Cell membrane.
Cell membrane, yeah, good, you remember that. Okay, so what are these things here?
Channels.
Channels, and what do channels do in a cell membrane? Let stuff in and out. So let's see, remember your 231. What do you think goes through a sodium channel?
Sodium.
Okay, potassium channels?
Potassium.
And calcium channels?
Calcium.
Right, so you learned that in 231 with muscle contraction. You had sodium, you had potassium, you had calcium. Does that all ring a bell? Okay, so we're going to treat a heart just like you learned in 231 with neurons and muscles. We're going to use ions to tell it what to do when. All right, so here we go. We're going to do some steps, and we're going to make some steps on the board. So clear some space. You're going to have 3 and 5. You're going to have 8 steps. Everything's 8 steps, right? Okay, this first list we're going to do, the steps are in the autorhythmic cells. These are the nodes. These are the Purkinje fibers. So we're going to do the autorhythmic cells first, and we'll do the contractile cells later over there. So my first step to an autorhythmic cell, tell me to click something. What am I supposed to click?
Open the sodium channel.
So what do you think would happen when I open a sodium channel in an autorhythmic cell?
Sodium's
Sodium's going to move. Good. Remember neurons? Does it go in or out? Sure?
Yes.
Positive?
Positive.
Bet your grade on that?
Yes.
Good for you. Sodium goes in. So my first step to an autorhythmic cell is sodium ions enter the cell. How did they get in there? Through a sodium channel. Or sodium gate, or you can have a lot of words for it. So I'm going to let sodium into my autorhythmic cell through the door, through the sodium channel. Okay, so notice my graph. Let's review 231. Why is the graph in negative land to start with? Right, remember neurons are considered negative to start with, resting potential. So if I add sodium on the inside, the graph should climb, which it did, right? That's your 231 knowledge. So I'm going to raise the polarization or raise the membrane potential inside the cell. Ring a bell? Okay. Now it's time to click the calcium channel. This is new from 231. So what's going to happen now? Ooh. Calcium goes into my cell. So calcium enters my cell. How did it get in there? Through a what?
Channel.
Through a calcium, through a calcium channel. Celadin makes kind of a big noise about being a fast channel. I'm not too concerned by that one. But the calcium is coming in through a calcium channel. So my graph went way, way up. And what do we call it when the graph goes up in a neuron? What do we call that? What kind of polarization is that? Depolarization. So step 1 and 2, you've depolarized your autorhythmic cell. Yes?
Does the calcium be polarized more than the sodium?
Yes. So the calcium, because it's faster, causes a higher spike. But they both together make the graph go up. All right? So sodium came in, followed by calcium. There's going to be a third step. Can anyone guess what the third step might be? It's about potassium. Let's find out. Click the potassium channel. Which way is potassium going to go? Out. Good for you. Potassium leaves. How's it get out? Through a potassium channel. And what do we call it in a neuron when potassium leaves? Very good. So step 3 is a repolarization event because my graph is going back down toward negative. I'm resetting the polarity of my neuron. That makes no sense. You should take 231 again. Right? So it makes sense. So sodium, calcium, and potassium. 2 ins and an out. I've just depolarized my node or my autorhythmic cell. Make sense? Okay. We're done with autorhythmic cells. Because now we're going to shift control to the contractile cell, the muscle cell. All right. Notice I have the same kind of layout. I have my channels, I got phospholipid membranes, and here we go. Ooh, click the gap junction. Okay. Ooh. That's so good, I want to watch that again. Let's replay that. Mm-hmm. All right, let's make a new list over here. Contractile cell list. These are the contractile cells, the muscle cells. Step 1, what happened in step 1 there? All right, so we had sodium and calcium enter the cell, the contractile cell. Where did they come from?
Autorhythmic cell.
From the autorhythmic cell. Look in the autorhythmic cell. See how sodium and calcium went into my autorhythmic cell? There's a hole between it, so those are going to leave here and enter here. So these are from the autorhythmic cell. And why do you think the contractile cell needs these from the autorhythmic cell? What do you think that does to my contractile cell? Yes, it hits the threshold. It causes it to become active. So this is your threshold. I'm going to stimulate my contractile cell to begin contracting. So I do my 3 steps there, and that's going to start my contractile cells to contract. So now, after the sodium and calcium enter my contractile cell, notice how I depolarize. I'm starting to depolarize. Here we go. Next one. Boom. Oh, click the sodium channel. Hazard me a guess, Jay. What's going to happen? Sodium's going to go in? You sure? You're getting tired, I can tell. Right? Sodium comes in. Same as over there. Nothing has changed. So step 2 of my contractile cell. Sodium enters the contractile cell. How? Through a sodium channel. Well, this is looking easy. I'm repeating steps. Step 3. What do you think step 3 is going to be?
Calcium.
Calcium channel.
Pretty close. Let's find out. By the way, let's look at our graph. Sodium came in, my graph goes up, right? I'm depolarizing. Oh, look, click calcium. You're right, right? Oh, how wrong you were. Let's replay that again. One more time. It is true, calcium came in. Well, what else happened?
Potassium was.
At the same time. So we're going to star step 3. It is a very unique step. It's so unique it gets its own name. We're going to star step 3. So calcium enters the cell through a calcium channel. That is true. And what happened at exactly the same time? And potassium leaves the cell through a potassium channel at the same time. They swap, basically. So you have 2 things going on in step 3. So now we got to give this a fancy name. So step 2. The sodium enters, that was depolarization. Step 3 is not depolarization anymore, because look at my graph. What did my graph do in step 3?
Go down.
Well, it went down a little bit, but it didn't really go up or down, right? So we call when things stay kind of flat.
Plateau.
That's called the plateau phase. So step 3 is called the plateau. So it's not depolarization, it's plateau. You're holding because you swap ions in for out, tit for tat. So you're not going to change the graph very much. So sodium came in, calcium and potassium kind of flip-flop, so my graph doesn't move. We got one more step to go. What do you think is going to happen now in step 4? We're going to do repolarization. Let's check. Click the potassium channel. Indeed, indeed. So step 4. More potassium leaves. And that's going to be repolarization. So in autorhythmic cells, you had depolarize in 2 steps and repolarize in 1. Here you have depolarize, plateau, and repolarize. So different modality. Yes?
What's the purpose of the plateau?
Glad you asked. I was just getting to that one. To understand the plateau, let's look at the next animation. Glad you asked that. That's actually a very good question. I was waiting for it. Right? Now we're going to hook together. So here's autorhythmic cell on the left, contractile cell on the right. Your graphs up above. So my autorhythmic cell is doing sodium, calcium, potassium. So zip, zip, zip. My contractile cell is doing basically sodium, swap, potassium. Okay? So the question is, why do plateau? Why do that? You want to look at the graph and tell me what that plateau is doing.
Delaying.
It's delaying. What's it delaying?
Between the.
Right. It's making it, you contract, and then you wait a while before you relax. Everyone see that graphically? That's time. Right? So why would I want my heart muscle to pause contracted for a microsecond?
To give it time to refill?
Yes, give it time to refill. What does Starling say? If I can fill my heart more, I can eject more. So if I can slow my heart muscle down slightly, that gives me time to fill my heart and eject more blood. It's a pause, so your heart has time to get the blood to move. If you think about that, if your heart was beating really, really fast, you'd have no time to get the blood in and no time to get the blood out. So EMTs, what do you call when your heart's beating too fast and you're going to die soon? VTAC, right?
VFib.
Leads the VFib. Because your heart's beating so fast, you don't have time to get the blood in and the blood out. So one of the things your heart has to do is slow down to let the blood fill and eject and close the valve. So this is the plateau, is to give it a pause. That way there's time for your heart muscle to do its job. Right? So this is a neat little system biochemically for your heart to delay slightly between when you say go and when it relaxes. So contract, hold, relax. Contract, hold, relax. Not literally that long, right? But you get the gist that the heart is trying to pause and hold the contraction to get the blood time to leave. That's part of that Starling thing. You want to give your heart time to fill and eject. Make sense? So you do it biochemically. So if grandpa's on a calcium channel blocker, now you get the gist of what they're talking about. Calcium channels are used in heart muscle. So if I adjust your channels, I can tell your heart how much pausing to do, thereby adjusting how much work it does. That make sense? That's the concept. So let's go back to our, not this one. Let's go back to our last little doodad, which is this one more time. Right? And we'll put this all together. So here's your normal heart. I'm going to damage it somehow. Okay, so I just fried your wires. I call that a bundle branch block. Okay, so I just screwed up your heart. Knife wound in the side of a bar, you're a smoker, whatever, your heart's bad. Okay, so what do you notice about that heart now that I've burned some of the computer wiring off?
Slower.
Slowing down. Why would it slow down? Why would it take longer for the message? That's right. So imagine there's a breakdown in I-5 and you have to go through downtown. It's going to take you longer to navigate through all these cells that tell them to contract, right? So if I damage the autorhythmic system, the cells are going to take longer to get the impulses. All right? That's bad. So future healthcare professionals, here are 3 choices of the EKG. I'm going to tell you this person's normal. So your choice is 1 and 3. Which one is that patient in this animation?
1. Because the signal's not the same.
Pick a number bigger than 2. 3, good. All right, let's figure out why. What's different between this and that? That's wider, right? So notice I'm still beating my heart, it's still going, but it's taking longer and longer for those signals to get in and cause the heart to contract. So if I click that, so in 2 weeks when you do your heart lab, bring a flash drive. You're going to be doing your own EKGs. You can save your EKG tracing. And Greg should know this too, but in my lab, if I start seeing really wide waves, I'm going to tell you to see someone in a white coat, because if your waves are getting wider and wider, it means your heart's having a harder time to get the signal from top to bottom, which means you've damaged your heart somehow, right? So hence, if they get really wide, it's getting slower going through the computer system, right? So what's wrong with patient 1?
No P wave.
There's no P wave. So what's wrong with their heart? There's no P wave. The atrial aren't firing because they don't have a functioning pacemaker, right? They're SA node. So your pacemaker's not working, therefore you don't get the atria to fire. So why aren't you dead?
Gravity's still pumping.
Yeah, remember gravity fills the ventricles. So as long as my ventricles are squeezing, blood's going to leave my heart. But I'm not going to have that extra bit I need to be really good. So you'll still be alive, just not well. This one, you're slowly dying, right? That's the concept. So an EKG can tell you how effective your heart is beating. So next class, we'll have more time. We'll actually do an EKG sort of tutorial on how to interpret some basic EKG. I'm not, a doctor, I can't diagnose you, but you can see some basic, this is weird, this is not weird. That's what you want to see in your future nursing career. Make sense? All right, so you got a lot of stuff to study for tonight, but that's what you're going to come back next week. So know the heart parts, know the tracing of blood, all that. I'll see you in a week.